Hello and welcome to another PFF podcast short. I am your host, John Costco, here with John Breitenbach, our ACC expert and analyst. We will be talking again about another quarterback in this draft class, Brad Kaaya from Miami. John, what are your thoughts here on Kaaya, and does he have a future in the NFL?
I would say my general feeling is that I'm quite down on Kaaya's season performance. He was highly regarded entering the year, but I don't think he took those developmental steps that we really expected to see from a potential starting quarterback. The Hurricanes in general didn't probably live up to expectations, and I think he was part of the reason for that. You look at the offensive personnel that they have. There's a ton of talent on that offense, and I would say he was unable to elevate his supporting cast to really challenge in the ACC this year. I think his problem is that he is simply highly erratic. Kaaya's never going to be blessed with the best physical skill set, so he needs to be a quarterback that makes those regulation throws on a consistent basis. And for me, he's simply too erratic to fulfill that expectation, and that held the Hurricanes back this year. I'm not sure if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I agree with you. You touched on him being erratic, and that's what stands out most to me when I watch him, is that if he has a clean pocket, he looks like he could be, an excellent quarterback. He's got that prototypical size. He has a clean and efficient delivery, and he's a natural passer. But then if there's any type of pressure that's getting to him, he starts getting, you can just see it. He's sensing it and gets rushed, and whatever he does, and his performance really drops off when he gets under pressure. He had one of the worst accuracy percentages under pressure. His adjusted completion percentage went way down from the 43rd in this draft class, which is obviously not ideal at all. So, he's somebody that reminds me a lot of Josh Freeman coming out of Kansas State, who initially looked good in the NFL, but once NFL defenses got tape on him and knew how to pressure him and get to him, he's not in the NFL anymore. So he's somebody that if he can somehow get over this tendency to just feel rushed and be erratic and get happy feet, and when he gets pressure on him, he could turn into a fine quarterback. It's just I just don't see that happening. It was a concern of mine in 2015 when watching him, and it didn't improve at all. In fact, it got worse in 2016. So that's an issue from what I see from him.
Yeah, I think it's worth dwelling on just how big a problem it is. I mean, we see him trying to set up screens last year, and even when the offensive line is trying to draw pressure on to open up those screens underneath, he's still missing, his running back lined up 10 yards from him. And I think those kind of plays he needs to be 100% on. There are other examples, even with a clean pocket, where he's got Stacey Coley with 10 yards of space running an out in the red zone, and he's overthrowing him. He did it, I would say, fairly frequently on downfield passes. He doesn't seem to have a great sense of how much to take off the football. Now, he is young. I do think he'll improve in that regard. But I think the inconsistency coupled with the physical limitations are going to make it really difficult for him to develop in the NFL.
Yeah, you look at his accuracy numbers, throwing down the field, and they're one of the worst in the class. Under anything under 10 yards, he's okay. He shows good accuracy. He's not the top of the class or anything like that, but he's in the middle of the pack. But when you put him, ask him to throw between 11 and 20, 21 and 30 yards, he's as bad as like a Cephalufau, who's not even a guy that you would consider as a franchise quarterback in this class. not somebody I would draft. So he has issues where obviously, you're talking about his screen game. He's poor in that. And he graded out as one of the worst in the class at that. Throwing vertically down the field, he's graded out one of the worst. And just like I touched on it earlier with his under pressure, when he's got a clean pocket, he has a passer rating of 113, which is really good. But when he put the pressure on him, he drops all the way down to 59.2. And that's college pressure. Imagine how much worse it'll be against NFL pressure. He's a guy that I think, he has good smarts and he's a hard worker by all reports, but if you can't handle the pressure, it's just not going to be a successful quarterback, not even as a backup. And that's an issue. If he can develop that and get over that, something that he would be able to become a backup in this league. But, from my standpoint, I just don't see it happening. I see too much Josh Freeman in him when I watch him every time.
And I think those inconsistencies in his delivery are not the only problem when he is under pressure, because he's not a guy who's going to evade the rush particularly effectively in the pocket. He took a number of hits and a number of sacks because he's not capable. He's simply not capable of avoiding rushes. He doesn't seem to have the vision for it. He doesn't have the balance to do it. I think he's fine when there'll be a couple of plays where he's able to take off. A clear lane will open up in front of him and he's able to pick up some yardage on the ground. But he's not a guy who's going to be able to consistently evade rushes in the pocket to extend plays. So I think you combine those things together and it makes a somewhat bleak picture regarding his prospects.
Yeah, I agree with you there. He's kind of like Joe Flacco in the pocket, but without the arm talent that Flacco has and the poise of Josh Freeman. So he's got a long road to get there to become, a guy that you can rely on in the NFL. If there was one spot that would be ideal for him, do you have something like that for him where, that he could develop and maybe down the road, be a quarterback in this league?
I'm wondering where might fit best. I think a scheme where he can build his rhythm will be quite important. A scheme that allows him to hit the percentage passes, to develop some confidence and build from there. I don't think he's suited to some of these vertical offenses that we've started to see coming into the NFL. I think as a backup in Philadelphia, he could work there. I know they've added a few guys recently, but I'm not sure Nick Foles is the long-term answer there. And I think Doug Pederson, I should say, would work effectively with a guy who he's willing to keep the kind of protection around him and build from a kind of short-based style. Is there a team that you think would be a great fit?
I was thinking about Kansas City and Andy Reid's system, and what you said makes more sense because Chiefs are, they seemingly are looking for a replacement for Alex Smith, and I wouldn't want Kaaya, something to draft somebody that would, replace him next year because I don't think Kaaya would be ready in just 1 year. And if you put him behind somebody like Carson Wentz, that allows him to sit essentially, because Eagles are hopefully having Carson Wentz as the quarterback for the next decade, that they would be able to sit Kaaya for all 4 of those years, develop him, and potentially have, a polished quarterback and be able to trade him for an asset or get some type of compensation in terms of, just keeping him on their roster and using him as a solid backup. So I think either situation might be good. I think what you said for the Eagles would probably be best. That way, Doug Peterson or his offense is a lot of short throws, a lot of manufactured throws that with a few shots down the field, calculated. So, I agree with you on that and how he sets up his offense.
Sticking, maybe the Giants would make sense as well from that perspective. We know that they like a high volume passing attack. Eli Manning, perhaps, in the last few years with the Giants. So I could see Ben McAdoo looking that as a potential option, especially where they sit currently towards the back of the draft rounds, having had a successful year. That's another potential possibility.
Yeah, Eli, I know we've never been really high on Eli, or at least not the past couple of years. We haven't been, and so his time would be coming to an end soon. Maybe in 3 years he'd be somebody that'd be a viable option to start at quarterback, and if not, you'd know by then. So, all right, that's all the time we have on Brad Kaaya. Be sure to take a look at ProFootballFocus.com and take a look at our Draft Pass. The third version of that has just recently dropped. It has 250 player profiles, 500 plus pages of draft data that you could ever want. It's you won't find any better draft guide out there. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more podcast shorts coming up.